Hey groupers, Pastor Marshall. Hope you're ready to dig into God's Word. Two stories this week that blend together. One is difficult, one is beautiful. The difficult story, of course, is the betrayal of Jesus. And so to get things started today, to break the ice in group, to get everyone talking, think about this. Have you ever had to fire someone? Have you ever had to demote someone at work? Did you ever have to cut someone from the team? Maybe you were a coach and you had to cut a kid from the team. Did you ever have to unfriend somebody on Facebook, on social media, or literally say to a friend, we just can't be friends anymore? This week's passage in Luke opens with the conspiracy, it says, to get rid of Jesus. Of course, this conspiracy was led by the chief priest and the religious leaders. They employed tactics because they can't go directly at Jesus because of his popularity. So they're coming at him sideways. I want you to talk in your group at the beginning about what's your story. If you had to do a difficult situation, cutting someone, firing someone, demoting someone, unfriending someone, did you go at it straight on, or did you employ tactics? And if so, what did you do? Well, that will get you talking. Now, after you've gotten talking a little bit, then let's dig into the passage. This passage, I think, is difficult. I shared with you this last weekend that I think that it's scary. It says that Satan entered Judas, and it says that he was one of the 12. It's drawing our attention to the fact that this man, he was in close relationship with Jesus. He was an insider. He spent 3 years with Jesus, all of his teaching, all of his miracles, one-on-one at times with Jesus, and yet he still succumbed to the temptations of Satan. He was even seated in the second highest place with Jesus at the Lord's Supper. John the Apostle on one side, Judas on the other. So passages like this bring all kinds of questions, possible discussion questions for us. For instance, are you afraid of the devil doing this to you? If you are afraid of the devil doing this to you, why? If you're not afraid of the devil doing this to you, why not? Second, I believe that we have to open ourselves to these ideas, in essence, that Satan plants in our lives. I don't believe that he can plant them in our minds or in our hearts. I believe that he plants them in our lives, and then we have to open ourselves to these ideas. In essence, we have to invite the devil inside. We have to let him into our minds. We have to let him into our hearts. What do you think about that? Do you think that the devil can influence us directly in our minds and our hearts, or that he's only on the outside, like I believe, planting ideas in our lives, and then we have to invite him in? Finally, those of you who know me know that I believe that the devil's 3 foundational tactics are to tempt us with pride and greed and lust. And I believe that pride is the love of self, and lust is the love of the forbidden, and greed is the love of more. And that these 3 primary tactics are the way that Satan attacks us, tempts us. Do you see any other kinds of ways that Satan would tempt us that would not stand on these 3 foundations? Have I missed something? Or did everything stand on these 3? And then let's spend a few minutes in our groups talking about the Lord's Supper. It is the tradition in our church to take the Lord's Supper every week when we come together for worship. I wonder, what was your tradition before you were part of Lakeside Christian Church? If you were raised Roman Catholic, then your tradition was to take the Lord's Supper every week, just like we do. Otherwise, you likely did not take it every week. Maybe you took it monthly, maybe you took it quarterly, maybe you took it annually. If your tradition was different than our tradition, what do you think of ours? And what would it be like to go back to not taking it every week? Does that seem attractive to you, or does it seem like stepping down? Well, what do I like? Every week I want you to share what your favorite things in the passage are. What do I like? Well, I love communion. I love the story of Jesus breaking the bread and saying, "This is my body." He was prophetically speaking about what was going to happen to him just in hours. I love him picking up the cup of wine, and saying, "And this is my blood, which will be poured out for you, shed for you." Gives me chills just even picturing that scene. I love it. What do I not like? Well, the easy answer, of course, is to say that I don't like Judas or I don't like Satan. I'll leave those easy answers for you. I don't like the religious elite conspiring to rid the world of Jesus. I don't like that they can't go at him head on. I don't like tactics. I just don't like it. Well, application. I want to remind you every week in small group what we talked about, what we committed ourselves to on Sunday in the message. And so the application this last week was how to overcome the carrot when it's dangled in front of us. When Satan does plant ideas in our lives, how do we overcome these temptations? And so I challenge you to ask who, what, when, where, why. Who am I most tempted to be sinning with? When am I most susceptible to sin? Where do I fail the most? Are there places where I fail? What do I often do before I sin? What's in my mind? And then finally, why do I sin? What is in my heart? I told you that not only do you ask these questions, but then we need a plan for some scripture, that we would memorize some scripture that we would draw on when we're being tempted, a plan that we would pray when we're being tempted, and the plan that we would implement consequences in our lives. If I sin, then this is the punishment. I'm punishing myself for these mistakes. And then finally, I challenge you to pick one temptation, one thing that you're dealing with, and then to sit down and do the work. Who, what, when, where, why, what scripture could I use to apply to this? Praying about it, and what are my consequences? Well, I hope that you've already done that. I hope that you did it this last weekend on Saturday night or on Sunday afternoon. But if you haven't, I hope that you'll do it when you leave group. God bless. I'll see you this next weekend.